Welcome. Last week in Seattle, the Chinese President Xi Jinping was greeted by a group of Falun Gong protesters. One of the Falun Gong practitioners' banner read, I quote, "Forced organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners is not tolerated by heavenly principles." Our topic for today's show is forced organ harvesting in China. Join me today is Mr. Shanjian Li, the Vice President of Oregon Falun Dafa Association, and Tim Gebhardt, I hope I got your name right, spokesperson of Oregon Falun Dafa Association. Welcome.
Thank you.
So let's start with about forced organ harvesting. Most people here are really not very familiar with that concept. Can you explain a little bit about the difference between organ donation and forced organ harvesting?
Sure. Forced organ harvesting, that is where, well, in China, where this is happening is they take prisoners. In this case, we're talking about Falun Dafa practitioners and also prisoners of conscience. House Christians, Tibetans, these are people that they do this to. They'll put them in prison and, they'll actually sell their organs to the highest bidder. So say, you have a certain blood type, well, they'll take that person in the prison, just kill them. They'll just take them back, without even anesthetizing them in many cases in China, remove the organ that they want and sell it to the highest bidder. So that's forced organ harvesting. This has been going on for many years since the start of the persecution of Falun Dafa practitioners in China. So,
I guess probably people are very familiar with the organ donation here is, people who willing to donate their organs when they are, let's say, in an accident and they cannot be rescued, and they say, in such kind of situation, I would like to donate my organ for some of the people in need, and you do that, and people in need, they will register in the national organ network, and when such happens, the person that you need the organ that can match your blood type, tissues, then there is just many medical criteria, and they got notified. So this is the situation how it works here, but in China this organ harvesting is just different. It's not that person voluntarily like to donate the organ, but rather the organ was taken forcibly, and in many of the situations the person is killed as a consequence of this kind of operation.
So are you saying there isn't a organ donation system in China?
In fact, I would say there is almost none. The organ harvesting story was first exposed in year 2006, but because of the pressure from the international society, so until year 2011, China began first establish the National Donor Register Network. So before that, there's almost none. So basically, and especially consider the Chinese culture, people don't like their body to be touched after death. And so the volunteer donor is very, very low.
When was this allegation first came to light?
That actually happened. David Kilgore and Mattis, two Canadian human rights lawyers, they were addressing some of the accusations that were going on in mainland China. Falun Dafa practitioners, they were actually having their blood types taken. There were well over 100,000 Falun Dafa practitioners in labor camps at the time, and some of these stories started getting out into the international community, and so they started to investigate these allegations, and that led into the whole this whole legal process of trying to figure out, who is behind this, who is doing this, what is this, is all this about that's going on in China. So there were a lot of questions that were being asked at that time, and slowly these questions started to slowly become, be answered. This is, as Shenyan said, around 2006 is when there really started to be, concrete evidence that this was going on in China.
Yeah, I would like to add, in fact, before the two David from Canada began the investigation, actually the story, at least as far as I know, it was first exposed by a nurse whose husband is a doctor that involved in the organ harvesting operation. And so she noticed her husband is really in a very weird kind of emotion state, and sometimes it's speaking, and also when he watching a TV, he just think of nothing, totally out of mind, and so she feel a little bit strange. And later, after several questioning, she figure out what's happening. And this lady, after he came to this country, she first exposed this story. And at that time, they try to visit all the mainstream media here. Nobody willing to carry the story. I guess nobody really want to believe it. And so, in fact, at first, the two David that Tim just mentioned, they don't believe it either. So they want to do the investigation to prove that this charging, this allegation is not true, it's totally wrong. And they apply the visa. They want to go to China to do the investigation, but the visa was rejected by the Chinese regime. But they managed to collect many evidence. In fact, they wrote a book. They mentioned about 52 evidence that are supporting that such operation exists. Not only exist in a very large scale.
So the book you're mentioning is blood harvesting, I assume?
Yes.
So what are some of the circumstantial evidence that he presented? For example, do we know what is the scale of this organ harvesting? Is it in hundreds, thousands? How did they, understanding and knowing how Chinese government would not want this to be exposed? I was just curious, how did they collect their evidence?
Yeah, I guess there is many evidence as mentioned, 52, but one of the major thing I want to mention is the numbers. So when the allegation first come out, and people like myself, we visit those Chinese hospitals' website, and those websites, they list the number of transplant that they done each year, and of course it's a way to prove that they are really experienced in this, and they have many successful stories. They want to attract more patients, so it's like doing their marketing. And so when we visit each of those hospitals' websites, and also we reference the numbers that published by the Chinese regime, of course we know we have to understand that all those numbers, they are not the real number. They are underestimated. But even use this number, we can have this kind of idea that from year 2001 and to year 2006, the number of transplants they done each year. And so before I want to talk before year 1999, the average around is 5,000 to 6,000 transplant operation.
Nationwide?
Each year.
Each year, across entire China?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's start from 1999. This number began to pick up, and especially in year 2006, it goes sky high. It's threefold. It's 18,000 per year. And as I mentioned, this is a very conservative number. There is, I saw two other reports which estimate the number is much, much higher. But even if we use this 18,000 per year number, there is still just so many things that cannot be explained.
So the Chinese government has admitted in the past that some of the organs, actually majority of the organs used in the transplant came from executed prisoners. So would that number be explained by executed prisoners?
No, in fact, I want to add is, the Chinese regime actually has been charged that they are using the organs from those prisoners that are sentenced to death. But the Chinese regime has been denying that all these many years. So the fact you mentioned, the admit that is just, I think, 3 years ago?
Recently, yes.
Recently,
in recent years.
So why they are suddenly admitting that they are doing this? Even following this, the whole world, the Western society standard, that is not acceptable either. And so, why they suddenly admit they are doing that? I think this is the one way they want to cover a more evil practice.
Yeah, and there's also evidence, as to where, in the United States, in the rest of the world, you have to wait, over a month for, say, you need a kidney transplant. There's a long waiting period. But in China, you can go to the doctor the same day, and they'll say, yeah, we have a kidney for you. And, we can do the procedure next week. And with anything you need, they can supply you to within a week. And, as Shanjian was saying, in China, there's a belief that, you needed to be buried, intact. So people, their organ supply is actually very, very limited. But all of a sudden, after 1999, there's what seems to be an unlimited supply of organs that the Chinese Communist government has access to.
So why is it, you brought up the year 1999. What is so special about 1999 that would explain this surge of increase in transplant?
But before I answer this question, I think I want to address the question you asked just now. You're asking, how many prisoners in China each year they are sentenced to death. This is a confidential information, but the outside world have pretty good estimation. This is by international enmity, right?
Amnesty International.
Amnesty International. So it's around 1,700 to 2,000 each year.
It's just a fraction of number of organ transplant.
So this number, 1,700 to 2,000 each year, plus the organs from friends, from relatives, especially close relatives. This is the main source of the organ transplant before year 1999. And during after year 1999, and especially we consider the number in year 2006, it goes this sky high. And the number of prisoners that has been executed remains about the same. And so then it raises even more, serious questions. So where does those extra organs came from? And this extra is more than what already have this explanation, from the prisoner sentenced to death. And the team can talk about this, why this year 99 is special.
Yes, so we see this increase in year 1999, and what's happening in 1999? What happened?
Well, in 1999 is when Jiang Zemin, the prime minister, if you want to call him at the time, he unlawfully banned Falun Dafa from being practiced. So he ordered it to be destroyed financially, physically. He wanted it completely eradicated. And what Falun Dafa is, It's a meditation spiritual practice that originated actually in 1992 in the Qigong movement, and it had such explosive popularity. Newspapers were reporting on the health benefits of it. There is, a lot of just such positive outpouring for this. You'd see in the parks there were just thousands of people every morning, just practicing this exercise. And Jiang Zemin, he actually became actually very jealous of its popularity, and also of Li Hongzhi, who brought it to the public. So, then Jiang Zemin ordered the media to turn around and also, to start slandering Falun Dafa, saying, just really, painting it in a negative light, and then, practitioners went to appeal, say, this isn't right, we want to make sure, that people know what Falun Dafa is, that it's something good. And a lot of the communist officials at the time, they even practiced Falun Dafa, so they were even against, Jiang Zemin's order, to, persecute Falun Dafa. Jiang Zemin, he saw that people were, appealing, for, Falun Dafa to stand up to it, and then he immediately took that as some kind of threat, and he just ordered it. He created a 610 office specifically to just get rid of all Falun Dafa practitioners in mainland China. So that's mainly what happened in 1999 is when the persecution of Falun Dafa practitioners started.
So that explains why there's all of a sudden the increase of number of transplant, because I suspect that's when forced organ harvesting started.
Yeah, that's when there were Falun Dafa practitioners. They started to be thrown in labor camps. That's when the families started getting torn apart. There were over 100 million people practicing Falun Dafa by 1999. So the labor camps, they were almost completely filled at that time. So the increase of organ harvesting, that's that huge correlation right there.
That makes sense. So go back to the topic of organ harvesting. Apparently, people in the United States don't quite understand how organ transplants happening in China without a donor system. So can you maybe give us some idea of how Chinese organ plan operate?
First, I would say the organ transplant happen in China. The matching is different. It's quite different from the matching here. And in the medical term, we call the reverse matching. And so let me explain. So here you have a large pool of people who need the organ, and those people are waiting. And then you suddenly have one individual. This individual have the organs. That this organ might be matching for some of all those people that are waiting for it. And then when they find the match, they do the operation. And so the characteristic of this kind of matching is as a person in need, you need to wait. You need to wait until somebody that match you appear. And this waiting time can be normally from like 2 years to 3 years, and sometimes can be much longer. And while in China, it's the opposite. Is probably you have a large number of donors there waiting, and there is only a few number of people that need the organ. And when the person say, I need some of the organ, when the requirement pop up, and then they will find the matching, and they will find the donor for you, they will do the operation. Why I say so, in China, it has been estimated that only a small percentage of people can afford such kind of operation. And the estimation is around 22,000. And of course, this 22,000 is not enough. So they are trying to do the marketing toward our other countries like American, like Canada, Europe, Taiwan, South Korea. So basically, anybody who need an organ also has money. And the one characteristic is they can find the donor for you in a very short period of time, in terms of week. So I mentioned that when the story popped up in year 2006, all those Chinese hospitals, they have this information, how many transplants they done. They also claim that they can find a donor for you in 1 week, in 2 weeks. So basically, if there is a need, they can find a donor for you. And also consider that the organ, after the organ leave the live body, it must be used within 72 hours. So longer than that, it's not usable. And so that means that donor must be killed, in the past 72 hours before this operation. And this organ transplant operation can be scheduled. And so what does that mean? That means the person is waiting to be killed for their organ to be transplanted to this patient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in China, I mean, this is a state-run operation. So, you take like the military is benefiting from this, the hospitals in China, also the middlemen. The Chinese Communist government, it's a multi-million-dollar industry for them. So they're the ones that, have created this whole system, and they're the ones benefiting from it. So.
Yeah, so one other characteristic, like that Tim said, is the military. The military people, they are involved. And in China, the military was highly monitored and controlled by the regime. And so when the military people, they are involved, that means it's not an individual action, it's a state action, it's the countries, the regime are organized, are doing, are supporting this kind of thing. And they are performing all these evil crime.
Yeah, and, we're talking about profiteering from, the death of people, obviously, and, we hear stories coming out of mainland China, people, sitting in prisons, having their blood type taken, and then, doctors, are telling these stories of, they'll put them on these stretchers, without even anesthetizing them, just rip open their bodies, when they're still alive and breathing, they'll take the organs and then they'll just, with the remaining bottles, throw it in an incinerator and just say, their families, oh, he died of natural death. And so it really speaks to the, how the Chinese Communist government views human life. It's just so warped that, in terms of, the international community speaking out about this, the Chinese Communist government, they've even expanded this, as I said earlier, to house Christians and Tibetans, and, so it's really, something the international community needs to be aware of, because it's a really, it's taking human life and just really degrading it down to the lowest possible level you can imagine. So, oftentimes, when people hear about it, they're like, wow, I can't believe something like this is going on in China. This sounds like a horror movie, but, it's been going on for several years, and, so, we just try to do our best, to get the word out that this is going on, so the international community can, take a proper stand on this.
So obviously this allegation is very credible, and there's lots of evidence supporting it. Let's take a look of a short video about forced organ harvesting. Do we have a video available? So you mentioned that only 25,000 Chinese can afford organ transplant.
22,000.
22,000.
Yes.
We call it
That
a new
just implies
form of
to
evil
have
on the world. It's
600 organ
never been
transplant
done by
centers.
any government in the past, to
Oh,
take
let's take
a
a look.
large group of its own people and say, we're going to kill you without any kind of a trial, and we're going to sell your vital organ parts.
An individual from the United States or Canada, for example, could anticipate undergoing transplantation on a specified date.
It's a crime against humanity. It's abhorrent, and it needs to stop.
If you're going to go to China and you're going to get a liver transplant during the 3 weeks you are there, then that means someone is going to go schedule an execution, blood type and tissue type the potential executee, and have them ready to go before you need to leave.
Starting at the end of 1999, the number of transplants taking place just exploded.
China carries out more organ transplant surgeries than any country besides the United States. But unlike other countries, China has no effective organ donation program. That's because culturally, Chinese people believe the body must stay intact even after death. China's Deputy Minister of Health, Huang Jiefu, has suggested that there are 7,000 transplants every year from the deceased, and that more than 90% come from executed prisoners. The number of criminal executions in China is classified as a state secret, but Amnesty International's estimate is about 1,700.
The numbers just didn't add up. It's just too large of a discrepancy there.
With only 1,700 executed criminals and no effective donation system, where do the rest of the organs come from? Zhao Shuhuan was put in a Chinese labor camp because she practices Falun Gong.
我每到一个劳教所，他都会让我们检查身体，给我们抽血验血。每个劳教所都是。
We estimate that in the period between 2000 and 2005, there are 41,500 transplants which have no other explained source.
I'm absolutely convinced that over a long period from 1999 onwards, organ harvesting from prisoners has been taking place, especially with Falun Gong.
他领了到他那个马三家教养院有医院呢，那个医院就是做我真理解好像就是验尿啊，抽干戈。
Doctors would come into the camps, they would look in their eyes, they would examine their organs with ultrasound and the like, and they were the only people in these camps who were medically examined thoroughly.
In 2006, two Canadians, international human rights lawyer David Matus and former Secretary of State for Asia Pacific David Kilgore, started to investigate allegations of forced organ harvesting in China. They found at least 52 points of circumstantial evidence, including websites of Chinese hospitals offering matching organs in less than a week.
It's just not possible unless you have an unlimited source of organs. And these are people who are alive. We're talking about live donors. The actual transplant surgery itself was the form of execution. These were living people that were killed for their organs.
Makes you think of some grotesque restaurant where you go in and you pick your lobster in a tank. But these are human beings we're talking about.
The military's making money off of it. The hospitals are making money off of it. The middlemen are making money off of it. And we talk about money. We're talking about a multi-million-dollar operation.
Journalist and author Ethan Gutman decided to carry out his own independent investigation.
We had witnesses of disappearances, people who'd been examined and then had disappeared, busloads, entire prison wards which had been emptied out. The signs began to look like something much, much bigger.
Like Tibetans and house Christians, Millions of Falun Gong practitioners are being persecuted in China for their beliefs. In 1999, Communist Party leader Jiang Zemin issued orders to break them financially, ruin their reputations, and destroy them physically. Since then, thousands of Falun Gong practitioners have disappeared without a trace.
What happened to the disappeared? They, as far as we know, they're still there in these camps. Many of them are killed through organ harvesting, but the rest are still there, and they're the organ data bank for China.
Around 1999, there were around 150 transplant centers. 6-7 years later, they had 600 transplantation centers. This is an increase by 300% within such a short period of time without an organ donation program.
Military hospitals get watched in China, okay? There is nothing they can do without the party central taking note of what they're doing. Was this run by triads? No, this is run by the state. This was murder, and it came from the state.
This is a crime against humanity. We should do our best to identify those specific individuals who are engaged in this and put them on the list of people who deserve to be brought to justice.
In 2006, when this came out and we realized that they were killing prisoners of conscience for their organs, it was doctors that took the front line in trying to stop this.
Every day there are a dozen of people that are executed or killed for organs in China. So we have to bring out the message, we have to inform medical doctors to stop this practice.
But it's not only the medical community that's getting informed. The U.S. State Department mentioned allegations of forced organ harvesting in its annual Human Rights Report on China in 2011 for the first time. On October 3rd, 106 U.S. congressional representatives signed this bipartisan Dear Colleague letter to the State Department, demanding they reveal information on organ harvesting that they may have obtained from their sources in China.
This barbaric human rights abuse must be stopped, but to stop it, we first have to further expose it.
And with even more petitions circulating online, the issue is starting to get worldwide attention, but more needs to be done.
Welcome back. So in that video we just saw that there was a very compelling evidence that the report is true. So the question comes to me is, why is Falun Gong practitioner becomes the main source of organ harvesting? What makes them such a vulnerable group?
Mm-hmm. And of course, they are the group of people that is persecuted. And also the Chinese regime, when they are trying to get rid of a group, they are not really consider. They don't really have a limit. The kind of thing, what kind of thing they can do or cannot do. They will do everything. But I think there is also one important factors. In China, when the Chinese Communist Party want to force somebody to do something, they are not just targeting the person by herself or himself. They are also intimidating through their parents, their family members, their friends. Let's say, if I were in China, if I practice Falun Gong, they can say, okay, Shenzhen, stop doing this, stop practicing Falun Gong. I say, I will not. This is good to me. Why not? Then we will put you to jail. I say, no, fine. Well, even you let me arrest me, but I will continue practice. And then they will say, oh no, if you continue practice, we will fire all your brothers. We will fire your father, your mother, your whole family will lose any kind of income. And we may also put them in jail. And when they are doing that, then I will have to think about, because myself, even though I know my choice, this is my own choice, my right choice, but because of my choice, I'm putting my family members, my friends, in a very worse situation. And so really, for me, I will be hesitated. And if I can in any way help them avoid this kind of situation, I will. And so that's exactly what the practitioners are doing in China. When they got arrested, they refused to give out their name. So that way their parents, their family members, their friends will not be, persecuted.
Implicated.
Yes. And so when that happens, this person, it is just an anonymous person. Nobody knows this person is in the jail, and nobody has a clue what happened to this person. And then he became the perfect target for the organ transplant.
Yeah, and I think to understand why Falun Dafa is being persecuted in China, we have to understand a little bit of the history of what's going on. During the Cultural Revolution, communism took over, and they instilled a sense of class struggle. So you would have children fighting against their parents. They taught to struggle is glorious. You fight. You fight to get ahead in everything you do. And the Chinese Communist government, they really wanted to emphasize or make people as materialistic as possible. To take out their sense of traditional Chinese culture. It was that had all these values, such as honesty, loyalty, everything like that. They wanted to strip those away from people, and that way, if you have a population that has values, then they have a mind of their own. But if you take those away and instill materialism, then all of a sudden, materialistic people, they found are very easy to control. The Chinese Communist government's main focus is to stay in control. So when Falun Dafa was introduced to the public, its main principles are truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. And people try to be better people. It instills values again in society. Falun Dafa practitioners were going to work, and people were just amazed by how diligent they were. How they were looking after other people, and taking care of the families, and doing good for society. It had this huge influence in Chinese society. And then in 1999, Jiang Zemin, when he ordered the persecution of it, it really took people back. Why is the CCP doing this? The Chinese Communist Party doing this? And the CCP looks at it as power. They want to be in complete control of everything. So we've seen this. The issue with Tibetans. When China invaded Tibet, they just completely wiped it out and everything like that. So they really want to show that they are in complete control of everything, every aspect of society.
So both of you have been practicing Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, for many years. Just based on your personal experience, why do you think that there are so many Chinese practicing, and why do you think the persecution happened? How could it happen that all of a sudden one day a government just banned the whole practice that maybe 1/3 or maybe 1/10 of its population has been engaged in?
On the very superficial level, when people practice exercise, they really benefit from it. Physically, they have a much healthier body. Many of them, all those diseases that has been bothering those practitioners before they practice, they are gone after practice. And many of them also, when they practice, the way of doing things, the way to see things, totally changed. They are more peaceful, and they feel their life is more fulfilling. And so, using myself as an example, I began to practice exercise in year 1998. That's 1 year before the persecution. And from year 1998 to today, I never go to the hospital. I don't need to see doctors. I take no medicines. I feel that every day my life is very peaceful. Also I'm doing things, happily. Also I feel that my life has a meaning. And so this is one reason that really makes so many Chinese people, not only Chinese, but also people in other races, other countries, come to the practice. And so in China, in fact, without any kind of advertisement, the number of practitioners reached 100 million in China alone.
Yeah, and with Falun Dafa, there's like 5 easy to learn exercises that you can learn online, and it's all free too. I actually heard about Falun Dafa actually through online, the organ harvesting that was going on. Like, oh, what is this? What is Falun Dafa? And I read about it, and to me it really made sense because it was just based on principles. And just having a higher understanding of things, and then you can act accordingly. So I
think you're talking about these 3 principles: truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance.
Yeah, and it's very simple in principle, but very profound also. I really enjoy learning more about what myself for one, and also the world around me. And Falun Dafa, it really gave me that insight into, who am I? All these questions, and things like that. So, and also, the health benefits of it. I used to be very active in sports. When I was young, I played soccer. I was in martial arts for years on end, and I tore my ACL. Half the cartilage had to be removed. That was pretty much the end of the story. So then after I started practicing Falun Dafa, within 2 weeks, I was able to, run again, and, so I can definitely attest to the, health benefits from practicing it. Every morning, like in mainland China, you would see people, like thousands, just practicing in the park. A lot of people, they had, experienced these health benefits from practicing it too, and also, the wisdom and everything you gain from it. So it's not something that you just easily just say, okay, I'm just going to give this up and walk away. So it really becomes a part of your life. It really is, a practice, and that you see benefit from it, and then, you would keep practicing it, even under the threat of the Communist Party. So
yeah, and also I think this is talking about the principles, this truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. When you know that something is right, you keep it as a principle, not because it's somebody intimidating you and say, if you practice, we're going to hurt you, we're going to arrest you. Because of that, we give up our own right. And so I think because of that, even after the persecution, many practitioners continues to practice the exercise. In fact, in year 1999, I'm not sure if it's as a courage or probably, what. The Falun Gong is now the only group that was banned in China. They bind together with Falun Gong. There is another 17 other kind of Qigong practice. But Falun Gong is probably the only practice that practitioners continue to practice regardless of this persecution. They continue to use these 3 principles, truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance, to guiding them all these many years through this very severe persecution.
So obviously they have a very strong determination, of course. Is Falun Gong something new? Is it a new religion? When did people start to practice it?
Well, it's not religion. It's a lot of people refer to it as like a spiritual practice or a way of life. Li Hongzhi, he's the one that brought it to the public in 1992, and it was practiced, privately before then, and he introduced it to the public. And it's very ancient in its philosophies. It's very traditional Chinese values in it, and it really brings out the essence of traditional Chinese beliefs and things like that. And so the Chinese people are very accepting of it. It's like, and it was passed down as a lineage, and then all of a sudden it blossomed. As it's just a way of life, as I said. So it's.
I would say normally people see us. Sometimes they see Falun Gong practitioner as a kind of a religious group, and so we normally don't see it this way. But in fact, there is a Chinese term we call it cultivation. So in China, basically there is three major schools. There is three major schools of cultivation. There is Buddhism, there is Taoism, there is Confucianism. And the Buddhism and Taoism, they all has this religious form, so we call it a religion. Well, thinking about Confucianism, they never take the form of religion, but they are still a way of understanding life, a way of how to live following those Confucius principles. So it's a kind of a cultivation, but it's not a religion. And so similar, the Falun Gong practice is a kind of a cultivation, a way to continuously improve ourselves. But we don't have those religious form. We don't have a church. You never heard about the Falun Gong temple, Falun Gong churches, no such thing. And we don't need to keep a name list to say Tom or Harry. Here you are a member, you are of certain level. We don't have such thing. We have routine practice in Parole, in Waterfront Park, and also in Beaverton Library. If you like to join us, join us. If you don't want to practice anymore, it's your own choice. When you come to the group, we will teach you. We don't ask you anything. And if you go away, we won't call you back. Say, come back. No, there is no such thing.
It sounds wonderful. So such good practice has been, being banned in China since 1999, as you were just saying. It's been many years. What's going on? What is the current state of Falun Gong practitioners in China? I understand they're still being persecuted, but is there any relief in that?
Unfortunately, there isn't any relief in that. The persecution's been going on for 16 years now, and there's a lot of effort to bring this, to the international community. We have resolution of the United States, resolution 281, and then resolution 343 right now, which addresses the issue of organ harvesting going on. And this is to condemn, the Chinese Communist Party for their actions. And the European Union, they actually just passed a resolution a few years ago, and countries have taken their stand against the Chinese government's actions, but there hasn't been any real concerted, unified effort, to really address this issue. So, Falun Dafa practitioners, at an individual level, and also, we're out on the streets, telling people, about the persecution that's going on, and we inform our local legislators, officials, what's going on in China, because it's so hard to get news outside of mainland China, an accurate picture of what's going on. because the Chinese Communist Party, they actually, they censor everything so much. What you see, what is going on in China and the views we get are completely the opposite, So a lot of it is actually just informational, getting that information out. The world needs the information. They need to know what's going on inside of mainland China. And a lot of the media have been very reluctant to report what's going on in mainland China. And there are many, many reasons for that. The main one is, business interests, things like that. The world has become so globalized, and the economies are so tied together that to speak out against the human rights issues in China, some corporations, they might feel, that's not something they want to do. That might hurt their, business. So we've had to address some of those issues. So.
Yeah, but I would like to add, even though the persecution continues, and the practitioners in China, both in China, actually outside China, we are continue to try to inform people what's really happening. We call the clarify the truth. So in fact, you see all these many years, you never heard any kind of incidents, any violence from Falun Gong practitioners. We just tell people what's happening. And I would say, even though the persecution still continues, but the people's attitude, people's reaction to this persecution actually really changed a lot. From the very beginning, the Chinese regime's propaganda is the only information source you hear, what Falun Gong is and what are those group of people. And now people began to realize, they began to see those practitioners, who they are and what they have been doing all these many years. And many people also began to realize about the persecution, how severe it is. For example, using this the organ harvesting we've been talking about. In the very beginning, when we were talking about the organ harvesting, nobody believed us. But now because of this mounting evidence, so anybody who is willing to open their eyes, they have to admit that such thing really exist. And in fact, the Tim mentioned that there is several resolutions. One resolution in Senate, one resolution is going on in the House, are talking about the organ harvesting. And also in year 2011, the human rights report by the American government about the Chinese human rights they also mentioned about this organ harvesting. And actually, that's the kind of thing we've been doing.
So we only have 2 minutes left. Just quickly, tell us what's going to happen next. What do we expect to see from within China, and also from international community, in terms bring people who are responsible for organ harvesting to justice? Do you have any insight to that?
I would say the first, before we have to tell more people about these things. As more people know about this, the Chinese regime will feel the pressure. And so this is one thing that we will continue to do. Another thing is, of course, we will bring those people who are involved in this kind of operation to justice. And that's actually one of the banners we show up when the Chinese leaders is visiting Seattle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's bring Jiang Zemin to justice. There's a big movement to sue Jiang Zemin right now to put him on trials for crimes against humanity.
So Jiang Zemin is the former Chinese president?
Yes, he is the guy who initiated this persecution.
And okay, so he was one who launched the persecution of Falun Gong, correct?
Yes. And so in fact now both inside China, outside China, people began to file lawsuit against him and asking him to put him in justice, punish this germ, and there is already so many cases pending.
So, as a member of Oregon Falun Dafa Association, is there any local activities you are engaged with other than telling more people about it?
Oh, sure. There's Resolution 343, which mentions organ harvesting. So, we go to our legislators, trying to get them, to co-sponsor the Resolution 343 to condemn the Chinese Communist government, and that'll put, international pressure, pressure from the United States on, the Chinese Communist Party, to end this, persecution, this genocide against, its own Chinese citizens.
Well, it looks like that's all the time we have. Thank you, and bye now.
Yeah, thank you.